Hello, Minnesota. Today we are going to be talking about how to build a cost-efficient cultivation facility in the state. I'm your host. I'm Dr. Lucas McCann. We are extremely excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the best practices, some of the important application particulars that need to go into your final license application package, what to do, what not to do, what lessons have been learned, and basically deep dive into constructing your cultivation facility in the state. I am joined by two others. We've got two very experienced folks joining me today. From TSRgrow, we have Mikhail Segal. He is a veteran in the cannabis space. TSRgrow is a very experienced LED lighting solutions provider. They've got a ton of patents, a ton of experience setting up cannabis cultivation facilities, not just across the state, but across the country and internationally. I see TSRgrow at a lot of the shows all over the world, and really excited to have Mikhail with us today. Thanks for joining, Mikhail.
Pleasure to be here.
We've got Tony Beeman, who is the money man coming from CEE, Center for Energy and Environment. Tony has been playing a key role helping to build milligram by milligram Minnesota's cannabis micro businesses and meso businesses by reducing their operating costs by maximizing energy savings. Really excited to have you here, Tony.
Thank you.
And of course, yours truly. My name is Dr. Lucas McCann. I'm the CSO and co-founder of CannDelta. We're a regulatory and scientific cannabis consulting company. What that means is that we are startup business coaches. We are the folks who help guide entrepreneurs for everything they need to know about starting a cannabis business in the state and across the country. We've helped launch over 450 businesses over the last 7 or 8 years now, including tribes, indigenous, First Nations, and even working with governments to develop their own sovereign regulations. My background's in medicinal organic chemistry, but I've been working as a consultant for about 8 years now, which is about enough time as it takes to get a PhD in cannabis, which really is a lifetime. And we're really stoked to be talking about how it is that we can shape your journey. If you have any questions about CannDelta, you can learn more on our website. We're a team of business strategists, regulatory experts, and scientists with folks who have graduate degrees, business backgrounds, and again, we've been doing this for some time, helping to launch these businesses from the ground up, from pitch deck to point of sale, and every little bit of information in between is typical guidance that we'd help to provide. So, we've worked with clients span the industry, from cultivators, which will be our focus today, to manufacturers, to retail dispensary operators, to testing labs. We've certainly seen a lot in this industry. All right. The goal for today's webinar is to help to explain and describe the steps to starting a compliant cannabis cultivation facility in Minnesota, whether that's an indoor or an outdoor facility, while helping to reduce costs through efficient equipment selection, ensuring that we're making most use of rebates, and through smart project management. That will be our goal for what we're looking to achieve here for the listeners who are coming in, not just from across the state, but also from across the country, who are very curious about the very exciting industry that we have at our fingertips. For those that need to build out, you have precisely 18 months from the time that you run your TPI background disclosure check. The timer starts for you to be able to launch at least one of your endorsements on your meso or micro business, or even cultivation business. So certainly important to be wary of the fact that there is an important timeline here to be cognizant of. Now, the OCM has mentioned kind of informally that they would be consider granting extensions to those who might be impacted by factors that are outside of their control, such as obtaining certificates of occupancy. Maybe there's some kind of building delay or materials that are being tariffed that are just very difficult to get. I'm sure they're going to be reasonable. However, if you don't show positive signs of progression with your business, this license could be put at risk. So we really want to make sure that we're showing positive traction and that we're using it. Otherwise, we might lose it. So very important to consider. Now, just to very quickly highlight some of the important distinctions between the different kind of businesses that we have. So we have the meso business, the micro business, and the cultivator. So the micro business is a very, very small focus, which has a seed to sale allowance with one retail store permitted. That store doesn't have to be at the same space, but typically would be responsible for setting up at some location and dispensing both their products potentially and the products of other producers located in the state. With the micro business, you also have an indoor limit of up to 5,000 square feet of canopy of flowering plants, which is on your indoor side. On the outdoor side, you have an outdoor limit of half an acre. You are allowed manufacturing and you can be fully vertically integrated. In theory, with the micro business, you could just be a retailer or you could just be a cultivator. And this is best for smaller operators, perhaps smaller teams, the entrepreneurs, the legacy growers who are looking to enter Minnesota's burgeoning market. The mesno business is for mid-size, multi-endorsed folks, typically teams or larger scale operators, and in some cases MSOs, who wish to open up to 3 cannabis retail dispensaries and or have up to 15,000 square feet of canopy space indoor or 1 acre outdoor. It is very larger scale in terms of manufacturing. It does have some slightly higher outputs there with up to 15,000 square feet. And again, does allow for full vertical integration, best for larger teams that are very well funded. With 15,000 square feet of canopy space for mature flowering plants, you're going to need probably close to double that space to be able to support the operations of that facility, which we'll get into later. And finally, the cultivator, the large scale grower, doesn't allow for any retail operations, but does allow for up to 30,000 square feet of canopy space indoor or 2 acres of outdoor, which is absolutely massive. No manufacturing, no full vertical integration. This is the true grower license type. In terms of the path to operating, there are several important steps that have to be followed before you can begin your operations. Most folks now have what's called a preliminary license, which doesn't allow for much besides the ability to gain investors, maybe sell some equity, look for financing, and looking for locations. You can't start cultivating with a preliminary license, and you certainly can't start selling any cannabis or cannabis products. The goal here is really to find a location that is appropriately zoned. And this can be through a leased property or through a property that you might purchase and own. To take those particulars for the property and submit what's called a municipal application. All licenses have to have an approval from the state, the township, to be able to operate there. And that includes basically a written acknowledgement from the municipality in which you are operating that your specific address is zoned and approved for the cannabis activities that you're looking to conduct. And again, if you're looking to do several endorsements across several sites or facilities, you're going to need several municipal applications to reflect each one of those addresses. From there, we enter into a build-out phase where we're completing all the necessary construction and renovations, typically using a phased approach and really focusing in on what is required for licensure as opposed to maybe building everything out all at once. We really like to see a phased approach. And with how we've designed this framework in Minnesota, you don't have to build all 15,000 square feet of your meso business at one time. You can start with 2 or 5, not necessarily 15. Finally, you submit all those particulars in your final application, all those components, the attestations, the updated key investor report, and any other TPIs and background checks are done at that time. And the OCM is going to come by, take a look at it. As far as I know, they are running in-person inspections for all site visits to ensure that the site is compliant and that the plans that they have match what actually exists in reality. So securing a location, step number 1. We want to make sure that if we're cultivating that we have the right requirements for cultivation. So before securing a property, we should be contacting municipalities of interest to confirm the latest zoning requirements for any areas, right? We should be reaching out to them in anticipation of going and signing a lease, an LOI, or even purchasing land or property. The reason being is you don't want to enter into these agreements without a really good exit clause if for some reason something happens, or at least some kind of pre-approval or green light from the municipality. Zoning maps can be very complicated, if looking at them on the whole. And in addition to some of these different colored areas where you may or may not have the ability to have the right zoning or operate under an endorsement, there are other considerations that also need to be considered, such as clustering, setback distances to sensitive buildings like housing, places of worship, community centers, daycares, rehabilitation centers, hospitals, and so on and so forth. So just because you're the right color doesn't necessarily mean your zoning is completely good to go without that confirmation from the municipality and the city. And even with what we've seen in New York, it's not always that obvious where the regulator in some cases has even changed how they are doing setback distances. So it's very important to follow the letter of the law or the rules that we have in Minnesota as it pertains to setbacks. Putting together the application process also has multiple components that go into it. We need construction permits. We'll need to obtain a certificate of occupancy to show that the building permits were obtained. They've pulled permits. They've built up to proper code. If we've done any kind of necessary renovations or changes to the site, that we have sewer availability charts or an SAC. We have air filtration and odor control measures in place to ensure that we're not stinking out the neighbors or anyone else who might be in our area. We have some form of waste management or waste management control in place to identify and manage organic and hazardous waste, that we're using the appropriate collection services for the products that we might be making, solvent recovery, so on and so forth. Energy efficiency is very important. More on that later. We've got experts here to speak to that. And then finally, this all goes into your final submission for your municipality approval. The build out phase, again, lots to consider here when looking at what build-outs can be and could be. So comparing and contrasting outdoor and indoor, I think is important to get a sense of what it's going to look like to put these things together. They're both very different. They have different levels of risk, cost, and potential for reward. And we can't mix the two as well. So we're not necessarily going to be mixing indoor and outdoor because that's not a permitted activity with your cultivation license. So you're really stuck with one, either indoor or outdoor. So outdoor, obviously, we don't have any control over the environment. You know, we're susceptible to things like climate events, hailstorms, rain, humidity, precipitation, snow, and other events. Whereas indoor, we have excellent environmental controls. And again, to speak to that, we've got Mikhail here who's going to be speaking in just a moment about what environmental control really looks like for a dialed-in grow room. In terms of startup costs, because it's indoor, naturally it's going to be much more expensive to put that together than it would be to build hoop houses or a fenced off area with security. So the cost of production for these are going to be much higher for the indoor because we have such a sophistication in control and in power consumption. In terms of the quality of the product, low sometimes is characterized as being low to moderate. You know, again, it's going to be susceptible to whatever's outside in terms of sunlight, whatever the weather is that week, or any other types of environmental influences, like, for example, whatever the neighboring crops are, runoff or spray from other crops can end up on yours if it's outdoor. So it's very important to be cognizant of what your neighbors also might be doing. Whereas indoor, very, very high level of control. Whatever goes into your plants is almost always extremely intentional. So you can really be assured that if your inputs are controlled, you know, if you have quality in, you should be getting quality out. In terms of consistency from batch to batch, this can be really dialed in on the indoor and it's much more difficult on the outdoor, although genetics can play a really strong factor here. And in terms of crops per year, typically you're looking at one massive crop per year for outdoor and up to 4 to 5 crops indoor per year. Unless Mikhail has some other facts that he wanted to say, that's typically what we've been seeing in the grows that we've seen that are that are indoor. Outdoor cultivation, again, number of things need to be at play here. We're still looking at proper inventory tracking, proper physical security, and intrusion detection measures, regardless of the location of the actual grow itself. Again, not too much on the environmental control side and not too much on the finishes in terms of, you know, what's going to be sort of the environment in which it grows in. Here we have an example of an outdoor grow directly into soil. We have trellis here to help with support, but other than that, very much subject to, you know, whatever energy spill the sun is giving that day. On the indoor cultivation side, you know, we do want to be paying close attention to the different kinds of indoor finishes. On the left here, we have a truss core paneling system, which was used in a micro facility to line over top of the gypsum or the gyprock layer there to provide a robustness to things like moisture and humidity. These particular panels are also used in places like car washes where you can literally take a pressure washer and completely sterilize these rooms in between grows. The room Shown on the right is another indoor cultivation facility there with the indoor table that is hooked up to a hydroponic system controlled by a central feeding tank. The rooms on this side are done in pharma grade paint with basic gyprock or drywall painted to resilience to allow for a little bit of brilliance with a polished floor instead of the epoxy floor. So in terms of the build quality on the right, I would say slightly lower in terms of the potential for expenses using the cases on the right, but again, very sophisticated on the environmental control side and using the hydroponic system versus the case on the left where we'd have a much more expensive implementation of some of these finishes, much more robust in terms of being able to sanitize in between grows. For the facility layout, again, this is a great example of why we don't necessarily need to build. We could draw a line right down the facility, and instead of constructing everything at once, we could look at a phased approach where we have a long corridor that extends down and we're adding in flower room after flower room as construction begins to complete, moving that zone of construction towards the exterior of the building from a finished sort of central location where we might have our secure storage, our shipping and receiving, and the important spaces of a grow that are required to help support those operations. This one is a very typical one. And again, in terms of the area allocations, this helps to increase production capacity as we're bringing on new rooms as they're being built, reduces a lot of the construction and operational costs, at least up front, and again, allows for excellent operational efficiency even while it's a construction zone. This allows for segregation and multifunctional rooms as well. Should you want to bring one of these rooms down, you could use it for different activities on the manufacturing side. If, for instance, you were running a micro or a meso out of this area. And then in terms of biosecurity, we really want to avoid cross-contamination and have a layout that's designed for integrated pest management. So typically we'll have sort of two areas. We'll have an operation space in which folks who are working in the facility are typically wearing some kind of PPE. They're donning some kind of PPE or gowning. And then the leftmost part of the space would be the non-operation space. Your administrative staff would be there. You might have offices, gowning rooms, restrooms, shipping, receiving, and other sort of support rooms like fertigation rooms or maintenance. In terms of physical security, we also want to be cognizant of physical security in these spaces. This is from a 30,000 square foot purpose-built facility. We can see here the security integration we have for intrusion detection. We have door contact sensors on all the doors. We have overhead door contact sensors, and we can see that we had both man doors and overhead doors in each one of these modules, which was our grow rooms. We have glass break detectors or glass break sensors around the perimeter on the inside in rooms that might have glass windows, vibration sensors over the secured storage areas, and then motion sensors and 360 motion sensors on anywhere that is a perimeter area to the operation space or an external wall. In conjunction to that, we typically want to have visual surveillance. Our retention in Minnesota is going to be 60 days of visual surveillance. Anywhere where we have folks coming into the facility, we would typically, and around the facility, we want to have visual surveillance there to ensure we capture any activity in and around those spaces. We're not required to have this in the grow room, and in fact, a lot of the lights, such as infrared coming off of the cameras, can interfere with the natural growth cycles of the plant. And then in terms of access control, very important that we consider the placement of things like card readers, key locks on a lot of these standard doors, mag locks, electric strikes, and exits or requests to exits in the setup for this. We want to be able to understand how people are accessing the facility, who's accessing and when, especially as it concerns access to the first perimeter and to the secure storage and the operation space and to each of the grow rooms potentially also. So something like a card reader is more expensive to set up, but can certainly help in saving a lot of costs associated with running paper logs and being audited later on down the road. So high upfront cost, but much easier to operate in the long run. Examples of this different kind of access control in a grow room would include card readers that you'd have on other side of the building, which are controlled by an electric strike. So having some kind of card reader with two-factor identification on it would allow folks to have some kind of fob or card reader with a four-digit PIN that they'd have to enter both in sequence to be able to gain access. So if someone lost a card reader in the parking lot, they wouldn't necessarily be able to use that card to gain access to your secure storage without being stopped by a card reader that's asking for a PIN identifier. Great idea. The contrast to this would be using a key system with an alarm at the end of the night, but then also having to manually record things like in a logbook, such as entries to the secure storage to remove products, which can be much more cumbersome, much easier to misplace or forget entries. And again, these can be corroborated with visual surveillance. We want to make sure that they're accurate. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Mikhail, who's going to take it away with his background in the LED and grow solution space. Mikhail, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Lucas. Appreciate it very much. And a lot of great things to consider when building out and trying to be efficient in this cultivation space. But TSRgrow, we're a leader in horticulture, advanced horticultural lighting. We've been in business now 16 years. Started the company 16 years ago to really get into LED lighting and have evolved solutions for this industry over the course of this time. And one of the most important attributes and innovations that we've done is to really remove the local driver off of fixtures and to create a true rack mounted remote power, centralized power system that allows you to deliver the photons where you need them, when you need them, in the grow facility to for the strains that you're growing, when you're growing them, and how you want to grow them. So a lot of true digital and centralized command and control for everything that you're doing in the facility. Um, we've been we've been maybe I'm going the wrong way here. Nope, that was, I guess, a little bit about me. So I jumped the ship on talking about the company, but yeah, myself, I've started the company. I'm the CEO, and we've been in the space 16 years ago. So we went through that. A little bit about some of the installations and some pictures. But before we get going, one of the things that I like to talk about is this industry is faced with a lot of obstacles, that headwinds, and it's important that everybody really work together and collaborate and be as efficient as possible. Some of these obstacles are 280E, with taxation and restricting some of the write-offs and other things that allow for profitable businesses. A lot of things that people are talking about also are rescheduling and descheduling, rescheduling, things that are happening. And I just want to point out that these are all good things and positive things that can happen, but be mindful of all of these things because we're dealing really into, as it begins to move towards rescheduling, we're moving into more of a global market and globalization. And while we're thinking local and operating local and needing to operate efficiently, there's a big industry out there, and thinking about how you design your facility and really move it and plan for where this rescheduling happens and some of the good manufacturing practices or EU GMP or where you might want to be in the next 3 to 5 years is an important factor for how you design and how you lay out your facility now. You don't have to do it in large scale, but really planning for those things and those obstacles that may come into place are very important. So I just want to put that out there, that as we talk about facility design and layouts and proper build outs and operations, consider that with rescheduling and some of these other things that could come into play to be positives, there will also become maybe regulations and other things that are important to consider that will also be opportunities for success. So, one of the things that one of the things that's important as you build your facility certainly is thinking about your master plan. As you build out and plan your facility, I mean, Lucas talked a little bit about a number of these things, but really thinking about permitting, what's happening, where you're doing it, what are the resources that go into your facility. So, Water is a huge a huge item. Drainage. How are you on well water? Where are you getting your water? What can you do with the water after you use it? Can you dispose of it? Is it considered a toxic waste that you have to remove and pay for? So these are all things that as you think about your master plan and where you're going into the facility and the site that you're choosing, it's very important to consider the land resources, power as well. Power is a very restrictive, um, limited in some areas. And, you may want to look at gas, whether you have gas to power, cogeneration units, or whether the utility can actually provide enough power for what you want to do in the facility when you're growing. So land, power, resources are very critical. Build for expansion. Think small. Lucas talked about this, really thinking about how you can build and start and then expand in the future. But really plan your facility on a large scale. But then as you build it out, think about how you can scale it and build it out. But at the same time, make sure that you consider everything in your facility on how you want to build, what you want to do, and where you want to go with the master plan. So it's very critical that you design for the full thing, design for expansion, but also design it so that you can scale it as you go and not have to build out the whole thing at once. One of the biggest things that we've seen is just trying to build everything at once and then trying to deal with a lot of issues, trying to scale up and start up and commission something that's too big from the beginning. One of the things that as you're designing and building, consider a team that has experience. You want to make sure that you're going to have success as you build out. So what do you need to do? When do you need to do it? Also designing for the use that you want to use. It's very difficult to design a facility that can do everything in one particular facility. Are you going to be doing extraction? Are you growing for hash? Are you growing for rosin? Do you want to do all of those things? Do you want to have purpose-built rooms? So how you plan to use the facility and what you plan to do in that facility is extremely important for you to design so that the design that you do is very efficient and very intentional for how you plan to utilize that facility for what you do. You can always expand, you can always add on and add different features in those different areas, but plan very specifically about what you want to do in that particular facility. Designing for operational efficiency is extremely important. One of the biggest costs of growing is energy, as we know, and as well as the people and the processes and how you build out and lay out your facility. So working with teams that know how, that are really fluent in terms of how you're going to design and lay out and utilize a facility is extremely important. Using equipment that's very energy efficient and allows full integration into everything in the facility. So allowing your equipment to be energy efficient, allowing a site that has access to the resources you need, designing that facility that you can really run efficiently in terms of how do you segregate maintenance from your operation? When people gown and come into a facility, are they all gowning together? Are you having teams gown up and go into specific areas for whether they're extracting or trimming or other things? Thinking about how people are going to interact and grow and use that equipment and use that facility is extremely important for efficiencies. And then when you do build that facility, how are you going to maintain it? How are you going to, verify that everything is working efficiently? So being able to plan in for verification on equipment, verification on operational efficiencies, verifying that everything is still performing, our lights outputting the same they did at the end of 1 year or 2 years or 3 years as they did in the beginning when you commissioned the site. So always verifying exactly how you design that facility is extremely important. And the other thing too is to consider where are things going in the future. So tissue culture is another thing to consider. Where are you utilizing tissue culture? Are you going to have a full clone and mom room? Are you going to plan on, storing your tissues, storing your mothers in a tissue culture and bring in Gen Zero mother plants and take your cuttings from that? So really laying out and thinking about how can you focus on cultivating exactly just for what you need to grow, when you need to grow it, and how you want to grow it, rather than thinking and trying to plan for doing too many things that can take a lot of efficiencies out of the facility that you're building. Um, so, one of the things that's a criteria for success is obviously thinking about making sure everything is integrated together. Don't have any silos, make sure all the systems are integrated. The building management system is talking to fertigation, is talking to the lighting, and that, that everything that is operationally done in that facility has an integration and a communication so that nothing is done in one siloed effect, so that when you go to do one thing, you have no idea how it's affecting anything else. So it's very important to think about integration and bringing everything together. Think about lighting early. Think about HVAC early. The types of HVAC, power, how you're going to use it, where you can save it. All of those things are extremely important. Um, the other thing that obviously being a lighting company, we like to highlight is not all lighting is equal. You have a lot of different things that can play a role in lighting. When we design our lighting solutions, as I mentioned earlier, everything's based about driverless lighting. So there's no onboard drivers that drive the fixtures. What does that mean? It means no dimming wires. Everything is centralized. Power and dimming is on the same line. When you're picking lighting, also look at the spectrums. Do you have far red in there? Do you have the ability to really, have the Emerson effect and really optimize the terpenes and the yields and the tack that you're trying to build out in your plants? What are the micromoles? Are they efficient micromoles? How much energy are you using? Are you able to deliver and take the photons for how you want to use them, where you want to use them, when you want to use them? So really controls and everything else, cleanability, serviceability, GMP. So our fixtures have IP66 sealed glass lenses. These are all important things and considerations. There's a lot of lighting solutions out there, but it's important to consider how you're going to be utilizing those fixtures when you go in and do them. Um, in As I mentioned driverless lighting. So our whole thing is ditching the driver. So our remote power servers take all of the drivers off the fixtures and centralize that in one centralized part of the facility. What that allows you to do is bring all of the maintenance outside. It allows you to bring in controls, and with a smart remote power, you can bring the building power directly into these centralized power servers and deliver that light where you need it, when you need it. Much higher efficiencies. And through this, you can truly optimize everything that you need to do with the lights at any given time. And the other thing that happens is you can integrate this into your building management systems. So you have a lot more efficiencies, you have a lot more control, you have data, repeatability, and consistency. So now you have the ability to consistently do over and over again how you want to grow each particular strain. In growing that in that facility, you can create recipes and drive that where you want to have the power and where you want to have the photons at any given time. So data-driven insights is, these are huge things. So being able to build recipes around how you grow allows you to save energy and use only the necessary photons for how you grow. It also ties back into the rebates that we talked about earlier and trying to save energy. By being able to have recipes and controls built in, you are now able to really validate and verify with the utility exactly how much energy you use, which also saves a lot on your CapEx and your OpEx. So all of the things when you're putting something together in a facility is how are you really building together the right equipment that's going to deliver the lowest energy consumption? What's going to drive your bottom line? Those are the things you want to consider when you put in. So data is key when you're growing your crops. So you want to have building management systems, lighting, HVAC, crop steering. One of the big things that people talk about are crop steering through fertigation. How can you bring recipes into the whole facility to drive not only the photons and the nutrients that you deliver to the plants, so that you can have consistent yields, consistent performance, and repeatable results. So climate control is really critical. It's an area that's really sometimes undersized. Dehumidification is critical, and really thinking about working with MEPs that truly understand the transpiration, the irrigation, and how you can really use what you do. It's also very important to consider and really plan and know exactly how you're going to grow those strains. So one of the biggest mistakes we've seen is, planning for, watering rates of one level and then building your facility and putting in and trying to grow and feed at different levels. Your climate system may not be sized specifically for that. So it's very important to work with a team that can pull together and really help you optimize exactly how you're going to feed, what strains you're going to grow. Are you growing in multi-level, single level? How are all the microclimates going to be pulled together? And really, how is that equipment integrating together to give you a full uniformity over the crop, not only in how you're not only in the air, but the temperature, the humidity, and also the watering that you're putting to the plants, as well as the light that's coming in. So really, it's a holistic climate that you want to look at and be able to control. And this ties back into really bringing in the integration of everything. So we've seen one of the things that we've seen again is really the limitations of a grow, or really how disparate the systems are and how incommunicative they are. So it's extremely important to bring your lighting, your power, your fertigation, your environment, your HVAC all together into one system that has full oversight, that can give you alerts and really allow you to be able to have hands-on to control exactly how you want to deliver and grow every particular strain. And those things, while they may seem more expensive now, the OpEx that you save and the long-term results when you think about GMP and sustainability, and really being able to meet future deregulations or rescheduling to FDA, is something that's really important to consider as you plan and build your facility. Another way to go to consider going to market and getting going is obviously time to market is key to making money. And one of the things that can be done to do that is by using containers. You got a rapid startup. You can be up and running in 12 weeks, whether it's cultivation, manufacturing, or even retail. You can build out a complete facility in under, in under 3 months. That allows you to start getting operational, get all your licensing in place, start revenue, and then from there allow you to slowly expand and grow into the remainder of your space that you've designed. So really consider containers as another method and a way to have a rapid startup and get to operational success and revenue faster. So with that, I want to pass it on to Tony and talk a little bit about rebates.
Hey guys, thanks Lucas and Mikhail. I gotta just take control of the screen if I can. All right. So like we said, I'm Tony Beeman with the Center for Energy and Environment, otherwise just known as CEE. We're an environmental nonprofit that's been contracted by Xcel Energy for the last 25 years to administer their small to mid-size commercial rebate program for lighting retrofits. So the school district is looking to upgrade to LED. They reach out to us. We'll go do the audit, the specification, build out the rebates and the finances, work with the contractors, implement, and then ultimately take care of all the rebate paperwork on the back end. So that's kind of been our bread and butter for years. And we just started a grow rebate category last year. And so we're starting to see some traction. Kind of our claim to fame is both in the commercial lighting space and in the grow lighting space. Our rebates are about 35% higher than standard incentives. And so it can add up to be quite a bit of money in folks' pockets if they're aware of our program. This has been the challenge so far when I'm meeting with growers is they're not familiar, and understandably so, how big of an impact rebates and which utility you sign up with are. I've gotten many growers have reached out to see if they could participate in our program, only to find out they're outside of Xcel Energy territory. And what I'm hearing is there's either no rebates whatsoever, or maybe $40,000 across all programs for the entire calendar year. To put that in perspective, the most recent micro license that we mocked up, the rebate for that property was $335,000. So that's the opportunity lost if you're inadvertently, if you have the flexibility to look into Xcel Energy territory, they're definitely the highest rebates in the state. Electric and gas providers, lighting, HVAC, and DHU. That's kind of the trifecta there. Sometimes controls can get incentives as well. Center for Energy, we just simply will help out with the lighting, but we can absolutely tag in some of our Xcel Energy partners to help out with HVAC and DHU. I already kind of alluded to this, but yeah, dependent upon the utility, the rebates can make a big dent in your total budget. So if there's a breakout, so we're serving strictly the micro licenses. So our rebates average 85 cents to $1.06 per watt, depending upon the efficacy of the fixture. So the higher the efficacy or the efficiency, the higher the incentive is going to be. All your meso and cultivators are going to work through Xcel Energy's prescriptive program at 70 cents a watt. And the maximum rebate that we can offer is 60% of the total material and labor costs. So a $100,000 project will receive a maximum incentive of 60 grand, no more. And again, kind of tied to the efficacy of the fixture to maximize that. This is just a quick calculation I did a few months ago, mocking up, your traditional operation with a 1,000-watt double-ended HPS light fixture. They're cheap. They work, they do their thing. They're a fire hazard and hard to insure. But if you have just a 5,000 square foot canopy, say it's 300 fixtures, you're going to be spending close to 200 grand a year in lighting costs with the incumbent technology. And then as you can see, as the graph drops to the right, dependent upon the efficacy of the fixture, that allows you to drop your wattage and maximize your energy savings. So for example, if you went all the way from a 1,000-watt HPS to a 500-watt with 3.0 PPE efficiency, you're spending less than a third the incumbent cost. So while they may be more affordable on the front end for sure, that will catch up to you very quickly in operational expenses with your utility. I talked about some of this. So like I said, the rebate is based on the combination of the maximum operational wattage and the efficacy of the fixture. So for example, a fixture that achieves 2.5 PPE is going to get a lower rebate at an identical wattage as compared to say a 3.1 PPE. Our whole program is designed to save energy. That's how we make our money with Xcel, is the amount of energy savings we bring. So we're always going to be tooting the efficacy horn as much as we can. Rebates, like I said, 60%. The rebates can go either to the cultivator themselves or to a third party like a trade ally or a contractor. That's a business model that some folks do take into consideration, so that the cultivator only has to outlay the net cost after the rebate, and then the utility rebate will be signed over to the trade ally or contractor. Again, we're Xcel Energy Minnesota. I've mentioned that a couple times. Anyone can reach out. We've got a electronic map where you can plug in addresses to verify utility. We've also got a real estate map. So if you're just saying, I want to look at Xcel Energy only, industrial, for sale, for lease, this square footage, you can narrow your filters and find available Xcel Energy properties. So we can provide that if helpful. Here's the rebate table that I mentioned, and you can see the accelerator based on efficacy. So like I mentioned, a 1.9 PPE might get 85 cents, where a 3.4 PPE will get $1. And that can add up when you realize they're 1,000-watt fixtures and you might need a few hundred of them. So definitely makes a dent. Program eligibility, like I said, Xcel Energy. A rule of thumb for us is we'll help out with all micros up to 8,000 square foot of total flower and veg canopy. Mesos and cultivator licenses will work through Xcel's program directly. Our program is for indoor facilities, not greenhouse or outdoor. It has to be an existing building. Now, that does not mean that it has to be an existing grow facility. It can be a vacant warehouse being served by 480 volts, so it's a perfect candidate that you're renovating, basically new construction within an existing building. That's completely eligible. There basically just needs to be a commercial Xcel Energy meter on site before you begin construction, and you'll be eligible. Like I mentioned, we're lighting only, but we definitely can connect you with direct counterparts at Xcel Energy. We basically have taken kind of a tag team approach with the cultivators, where we have, three-way email conversations. One, the Xcel Energy rep helping out with dehumidification, for example, while we're building out the lighting incentives. Here's just an example project. Oh, I lost my, there it goes. Anyways, we had about 200 flower fixtures, 60 veg, and 40 clone. Total project cost was just over a couple $100,000. Rebate cut that in half, a little bit more than half. Payback was only 0.6 year payback, and instead of going HPS, they're saving 150 grand a year. So as you can see, economically, the switch just makes sense. Here's another one, slightly larger project. This is the one I was alluding to, where we cut a check for 335 grand almost. They're saving almost $500,000 by going LED. Again, less than a year payback. We're looking at a rate of return over 100%, pretty competitive. So just an example of how much of an impact the rebates can make at lowering your out-of-pocket expense for a lighting upgrade. Things to consider. Most utilities, specifically Xcel Energy, they require a load calculation sheet filled out just to make sure that there's enough service at the property ahead of time, or if it does need a service upgrade to facilitate the new lighting, HVAC, and DHU loads. Existing building versus new construction, transformers are 6 to 12 months out, guys. So if like Mikhail said, getting to market sooner than later is a smart business move, an existing building would behoove you to speed up the process. Like I talked about multiple times, rebates can vary dramatically. So do your research. If you have flexibility on your locations, if you're unsure which utility it is, just reach out. We'll connect you to the right people, and we'll try to help you get as much incentives as we can. Location. Xcel's got the highest rebates in the state, guys. That's the bottom line that I'm hammering home. So choosing a location in Xcel territory can be 100 grand, 200 grand in your favor very easily. Just remember, the higher the efficiency, the higher the rebate that you're going to get. Don't forget about checking to make sure that you have enough service coming into the facility ahead of time. And our services are free.
That's great. Thank you so much, Tony.
You bet.
Just a couple of things here as we're winding down onto the next steps of what everything looks like. All these great particulars will go into submission of your final application particulars. Again, we take all the application documents, the attestations, the org structure, put it together with your municipal control, all the information about your site, including things like environmental control, odor control, layout, information on how you're actually going to be running your facility with your local zoning approval. All that gets sent over to the state as part of the application. It gets compiled along with important pieces like your SOPs and submitted as a part of your final package. So really, really important there. All the while, you got to be keeping in mind about how you're going to be, managing record keeping, like your cultivation records, your worker activity records, your input documentation, security, sanitation, waste disposal, financing, inventory, and tracking as well. All before getting your request for the inspection. Once all those particulars are in, the OCM reviews it. They'll be making an arrangement for coming by the site, taking a look at everything that you've said on paper is actually there in real life to ensure that everything looks good, including important parts of your SOPs. Again, we've got a full list of all the things that go into passing your inspection and the checklists available for clients who are interested in that. Very, very important because compliance is key here. This is an industry that's more regulated than tobacco or alcohol, and having a strong understanding of what you're signing up for, what your responsibilities are extremely important. You have your regulatory compliance, your agriculture and environmental compliance, and your operational integrity and security all go into ensuring that you don't become subject to enforcement action, which can include financial consequences, or in some very extreme cases, license revocations. So, non-compliant products going out there, recalls are expensive. Want to avoid those. Making sure that you get on the right foot from the day one and speaking to the right experts to get you along the way should certainly be top of mind. If you have more questions about how to get a license in Minnesota, You can visit CannDelta.com for some free resources, and YouTube resources are also available on our page. Or you can contact Mikhail directly from TSRgrow, and he can get you all the information you need about setting up your compliant grow system and LED environmental control for your cannabis cultivation facility. And always be talking to Tony, because Tony's the money guy. So really great opportunity for you to make sure that you're making the most of this opportunity through rebate programs that are out there.